Hey leaders, welcome to video number 2 of our leader orientation for CIY. In this video, I want to cover a couple of key things about logistics and details of CIY. Now, here would be my recommendation. Watch this video, part 2, and then immediately go and watch video number 3. In this video, I'm going to talk about logistics, but in the next video, I'm going to talk about the daily schedule of CIY. There's going to be a little bit of overlap in that, but hopefully those are going to fit together nicely like a puzzle so that you know exactly what to prepare for and be ready for during the course of the day at CIY. Let's talk about a few things in terms of logistics though. First off, we are trying to leave Boise as close to 6 a.m. as possible. It's probably going to be a little closer to after though. Most students will arrive right around 6, but if possible, as leaders, if you could come to the church right around to the chapel entrance around 5:30 a.m., that would be awesome. And the reason is we need to do registration with every student. There'll still be some students who will need to pay. Some students will still need to fill out medical release forms. Some will just have questions, and it would be great to have as many leaders as possible right there at 5:30 ready to help with registration. I'll give you a task and we'll get ready to go. The buses should be arriving right around 6. As we register students, we're going to send them into the chapel. Once they're in the chapel, I'm going to have a brief word and prayer time with everybody, and then we will load the buses and leave Boise. We're going to drive straight from Boise all the way to Pendleton, Oregon. It's going to be an early lunch stop, but we're going to stop in Pendleton for food. We're going to give students about 30 to 45 minutes to grab some food and get back on the bus. We need to try to make that a pretty fast stop to make sure that we get to CIY on time and have enough time to unpack and have dinner. Barring any sort of strange circumstances or bathroom disasters or something like that, we will make our next stop in Corvallis. And that's where this next piece gets a little bit interesting. And that is, we're going to get there, and everyone's going to want to get off the bus, and I'm going to tell everyone to stay on the bus. And it's going to be a little bit longer of a stay than what everyone's going to want. And that is because when we get there, I've got to do a couple things to make sure our group is ready to go. First off, I've got to go finish registration with CIY. Everything that we can do from here, we'll have done, but I still have to go in and physically check in our group, get our materials, which I'll talk about here in just a minute, and get our group ready. Then from there, I have to go over and talk to housing. And I wish I could if I could register and send another leader over to housing, I would do that, but it requires that you go to one and then the other. But when I go to housing, we're going to send the buses over to housing too, so that'll at least give you a little bit of movement. As soon as I finish visiting housing, I'm going to need every single leader that we have to help out with this next step. A couple things are going to happen. First off, leaders, you're going to receive a little fob. I don't have one because we gave them back last year because they cost a lot of money if we take them home. But you're going to get a little fob. It's going to be about this size, maybe the size of a raisin, or a little bit bigger, a grape, I guess. And that is going to be the thing that gets you in the doors of the dorms. Only leaders get these fobs, and students should never have them. Only leaders are going to get them. However, you're also, and every student is going to get a key. All right, it's just going to look like a normal key. That's going to be their key to get into their room. And they need to make sure that they keep that with them at all times. A couple other things that they're going to get, and leaders are going to get as well. Everyone's going to get a wristband. And we need to pay attention to what color is on that wristband. They're usually shades of like orange and green and black. And we'll talk about this in a minute, but we need to make sure every student has a wristband. Couple reasons why. First off, if a student doesn't have a wristband on, they can't get into worship and they can't get into any meals. That is your ticket. That's how CIY and the cafeteria knows that you are here with the group and not just some random person who sort of just showed up and wants to hang out and is a security threat or something like that. That's the student and the leader's ticket to get into events at CIY. In addition, with that wristband, every student's going to get a card. It's going to look like a credit card, and that is the dining card. Your meals are prepaid for in the cost of the trip. But when you go into the cafeteria and get food, when you stop to pay, they're going to swipe that card, it will remove a meal from that card, and you'll be in good shape. So at registration, we need to make sure that every student gets their keys to their room, a wristband, and also their meal card. Now, I'll have housing assignments done before we get to CIY, and so students will find out their housing assignment when we get there. I don't tell students beforehand because it tends to cause a lot of drama. One thing I will say, just as a logistical note, most of the rooms that we have at CIY are rooms of 2 or 3. Sometimes I get a room designed for 5 or 6, but most of them are going to be in pairs. The trouble with that, and this is one of the challenges about CIY, is that a lot of times we have friend groups of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and trying to figure out which 2 get to go be with which 2, especially if it's an odd number group, can be very, very difficult. And so I don't tell students their roommate assignment until we get there to try to minimize any fighting or drama that we would have on the bus. However, students, once they get those assignments, they are going to complain if they didn't get what they want and all that good stuff. Now, I don't mind if students are in a room for 2 and there's a group of 4 and they all want to sleep in one room and use the other room to put their suitcases in. Hey, that's great with me. It's kind of frowned upon at CIY, but we've been doing it, and it's kind of one of those things that they just expect, hey, groups are going to do this. It's going to happen. Here's what I don't want to have happen with housing, though. I don't want to put 6 people together and then have 5 of them go stay in one room and that other person just has a really, really lonely week. And so as you see students moving things around and deciding where to sleep, one of the things you can do as a leader is just make sure, hey, is everybody getting included? Does everybody have a roommate? Does everybody have somebody that they can talk to? We don't want anyone to feel left out or alone on this trip. Now, in addition to that, and there's kind of that look at the fobs and the wristbands and the meal cards, and the keys. We'll also be giving them schedules so that they can have those in a physical copy. If they download the CIY Move app, they're going to be able to see the schedule on that app as well. One thing that we are going to do a little bit differently though this year, and this is if we get to Corvallis on time, is we're going to take all of the students who have not been to CIY before. And as soon as we get them moved in, we're going to send them on a tour with one of our other leaders, probably Chris or Gabe. And it's not going to be a long tour, but we just want them to be able to walk around and say, hey, here's where your dorm is, here's where the cafeteria is, here's where we go to worship so that you don't get lost on the first night. And they're just going to go on a brief tour. And then from there, we'll go and eat dinner. Now, that wristband, like I said, you've got to have that wristband on in order to get into CIY events. However, it's also important for another reason, and that is we have to pay attention to the color. The cafeteria at Oregon State is great. They make great food for us, but it's not big enough for the entire camp to be there at once. And so they stagger meals. And so on the schedule that they're going to get, it will know what time the different colors eat. So that means for breakfast, some mornings, we're going to eat at 7 o'clock, and it's going to be early, and everyone's going to be a little grumpy. But some mornings, we don't eat till 7:40, and students are going to enjoy that and get to sleep in a little bit more. But it's important that after that first day, students only go during their time. And if you're supposed to eat at 7 and you show up at 7:40, they might let you in, but they may not. There's no guarantee, and that's why we got to make sure students are awake and help them sometimes. Hopefully they're getting up on their own, but help them make sure they get to breakfast. A couple other things. Worship is going to happen twice a day. We'll talk about this more in the schedule. We want to make sure that all of our students are at worship sessions. That's something that they're not allowed to skip. So they need to know that if they miss breakfast, and we would prefer that they not, but if they miss breakfast, they have to be at worship times. The morning worship is usually at 9, evening worship is usually at 7, and unless they are absolutely sick out of their minds, they need to be at worship. If we have any students who perhaps don't respond well to the noise or to the lights, it is perfectly okay for them to hang out in the lobby. We've also had students before. The event center there at Oregon State has a balcony, and we've had students have negative reactions to the balcony before. And if that's the case, we'll make sure we get them a good spot downstairs. So we'll do our best to accommodate students who might struggle during that worship session, but everybody needs to be over in that building, and unless they're having a sensory issue or a heights issue, or they're sick, they need to be in there. Worship time is not a time to be out in the lobby hashing out drama with the boy that you used to like or the girl who offended you or something like that. It's a time for us to be together to worship. During those worship times, they're going to have some awesome speakers bringing us the word from 1 John around the theme of contrast. We're also going to spend some time in small groups. Each day you'll want to watch part 4 of this training series for small group information, but at least twice a day, we're going to spend time together in small groups. In the afternoon, they have something called free time, and free time basically gives students the ability to take about 3 to 4 hours and just decide, what do we want to do with our day? There's 2 rules that I have that we will need to enforce for free time as much as possible. First off, students need to stay together in groups. It can be groups of 3 or 4. It can be a group of 2, but preferably not like a boyfriend-girlfriend type thing. This is not, our time to go sneak off and make out for a little while. Stay in groups. And the other thing is that they need to stay on the Oregon State campus. Now, that's a hard one because literally right on the Oregon State campus, you've still got Corvallis, you've got a lot of restaurants. If they want to go to Jimmy John's or Dutch Bros off campus in a group, that's fine. They should just let a leader know. But if someone's going to just cruise around, wander around Corvallis, that is not what we want. Sometimes, and I haven't decided yet, but sometimes on that first day, we will get one of the buses to come over and we will do a trip to Fred Meyer, let students get any snacks or things that they might have forgotten. Fred Meyer's about a mile away from the campus. But during free time, there's a lot of stuff they can do. They've got stuff like basketball. They've got stuff like soccer, Dutch Bros, ultimate frisbee. We'll bring a couple other games for them to play. There's a swim center where they can usually go hang out. Some years there's been rock climbing, but I'm not sure if that's going to be available this year. There's a lot to do right there on campus for them to do and spend time doing for free time. One of those days, I think it's either going to be Wednesday or Thursday this year. I'm waiting on confirmation from CIY, but we will not have free time, and instead we will be headed to the beach. So we'll finish up session, we will do a brief small group time, load the buses, head to Newport, and we'll spend the afternoon at the beach. We'll have students eat there, get some free time, take our group picture in front of the beach, and then head back for dinner. There'll be dinner and small groups. Our dinner, worship, and then small groups. The next thing I need to tell you about is lights out. CIY always designates a specific time that is lights out for the night. Sometimes that is 11:15, sometimes that's 11:30, sometimes that's 11:45. Our schedules will tell us what it is. Here's the thing about lights out. Lights out does not mean that students have to be in their room, on their bunks, lights out. What it does mean, though, is that students should not be outside. They shouldn't be in the lobby of the dorm. And if they are awake and hanging out or mingling in each other's rooms, that's fine, but they need to be quiet. We will strongly encourage students to sleep, especially Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. After that, if they want to pull an all-nighter Thursday and hopefully sleep on the bus on the way back, that's great. But we have to think about this a little bit as a marathon, not just a sprint, but as a marathon, and we want students to make sure that they are rested and ready to go for what God has for them for the week. So that's some of the logistics, that's some of the stuff that we just want to be aware of as we approach CIY. Like I said, I would encourage you to now watch part 3, which is the next part where I'm going to walk through the daily schedule, and hopefully those things, the logistics and the schedule, will blend nicely for you.